Spa centre for an annual pilgrimage for Belgian motor racing fans. The Belgian circuit is a favourite amongst the drivers. Even the best of them could find it a little too challenging. Nevertheless, McLaren were happy to have secured Ayrton Senna's signature on a new contract.
Any driver wants to be in the best team, to have the best car to win. And as long the team believes that I can do the job for them, and as long it's reciprocal, same feeling, there is no reason for changing.
Ayrton's a very complex individual, and we have a great attention to detail in the document that constitutes the agreement, and therefore it just took a long time to get every single part right. But we're very happy with the outcome.
Senna was lucky to escape further disaster as he attempted to get back on course. At the same bend, Donnelly's Lotus lost a wheel, which bounced off the Brazilian's car. Berger made it a McLaren 1-2 on the front row, despite turning his machine into a stock car through the chicane. Prost was fastest in the Ferrari on Saturday morning, but he couldn't maintain his edge in the afternoon, dropping to third place. Home favourite Thierry Boutsen was trying for 2 wins in a row. In the end, he took 4th place on the grid, while his boss was speaking about Williams' role in next year's driver move.
We are in discussions with drivers. I don't see any reason to rush those discussions. I can't say with whom these discussions are taking place, but in due course, we'll make decisions and then announce them.
I mean, is it wild speculation to say that Nigel Mansell could still be in the picture?
I think it's fair to say that whilst discussions are going on, it will be improper to mention any names.
You wouldn't, Frank, but we did. Mansell was still very much a Ferrari man. He complained of a tired engine on Saturday and slipped from 4th to 5th place on the grid. Ligier won an early reprieve from the trials of pre-qualifying following the announcement of the withdrawal of the Monteverde team, reportedly over a row over money. Spa was also the home race for Bertrand Gachot in the Coloni. He made it through pre-qualifying.
Spa is generally acknowledged to be the world's finest Grand Prix circuit. Its 4.3-mile lap comprises specially closed public roads, and it's got everything. Ayrton Senna goes for a hat-trick of wins this year, and he's finally resolved frenzied speculation about his future by deciding to drive for McLaren for another year.
We only really got it at the last minute. We had the deadline, and I want a decision by them, and we finally put ourselves both in a position where, okay, we have to decide. This is what we're looking for, and we now have to decide. And it was a bit of giving and taking from both sides, and yeah, still I think he got a fantastic deal for the team, and I got a fantastic deal too for me. So good business is only good when it's good for both sides.
It's been an exciting time for Senna in Belgium, in the cockpit as well as out of it. Trying to find his limits on Friday, he had a rare spin, lost the McLaren, and in getting back on the track, his rear wing was hit by Martin Donnelly's Lotus rear wheel. So, Senna drives for McLaren in 1991, and Prost drives for Ferrari, because he too has re-signed for his existing team, with which he's obviously very happy. But who's going to partner Prost next season with Nigel Mansell retiring? Well, here's an unexpected possibility. Little Alex Caffey, ex-Dallara, and with the Arrows team this year, anonymously tested a Ferrari this week and was only a few tenths slower than Prost. The plot thickens. Here today, the top 2 contenders are obviously the championship leaders and bitter rivals, Senna and Prost. But, of course, there are others. Benetton's Alessandro Nannini, who was challenging for victory in Hungary and confident he was going to win until he was savaged off the course by an over-aggressive Ayrton Senna. And of course, the local hero Thierry Boutsen, winner in Hungary 2 weeks ago, who started his career on the magnificent Spa-Francorchamps circuit and who's fighting hard to retain his place in the Williams team next year. 10 points behind Ayrton Senna in the World Championship, with 6 races to go and the best 11 scores to count, Alain Prost has to do well today if he's to carry #1 next year. And Gerhard Berger, only 2 points ahead of Boutsen, is just as anxious to win his first race for McLaren. But everyone's going to have a busy time on the world's finest Grand Prix circuit, including keeping a careful eye on their instruments. Jonathan Palmer.
The old days of a dashboard full of instruments for the driver to check are long gone. The sheer speed of the cars means that there is minimal time for the driver to look at anything, while space is also at a premium as cars get ever slimmer. But perhaps most important of all, modern electronics allow the bulk of engine monitoring now to be done in the pits. There will never be a substitute for the rev counter though. Its shape may have developed, but it's as important to the driver as the speedometer is to the family motorist. The limit he mustn't break is that of the maximum engine revs, usually well over 12,000 RPM. Indeed, the rev counter scale doesn't even start until 7,000, just above idle, when many family cars would already have blown up. He has other displays too, water and oil temperature, oil and fuel pressure, but it's in the pit now where the careful monitoring takes place, by telemetry. Information is radioed from the car and displayed on a daunting bank of screens and computers, manned by a team of technicians. As well as displaying all the information the driver has, much more is recorded, even down to an analysis of exhaust gases and throttle position, the ultimate spy in the cab. Fortunately, there's still a role for that cleverest of communication systems, the human voice. On pushing the steering wheel mounted button, the driver can express his feelings to the pit by radio, though sound quality can be variable, which is sometimes just as well.
In pole position for the 48th time in his career, Ayrton Senna with Gerhard Berger second, Alain Prost third, and Belgian Thierry Boutsen fourth. Nigel Mansell is fifth, Sandro Nannini sixth. Satoru Nakajima is an excellent 10th. The two Nolas have done well, Aguri Suzuki 11th and Eric Bernard 15th. Derek Warwick is a disappointing 18th and his teammate Martin Donnelly is 22nd. And David Brabham is in at 24. Grid is clear at the back. You can expect to see the lights. There they are. And it's go. Senna away well. Berger tucks in behind him. Prost is third. Boutsen is fourth. They're still in grid positions. This is where the problem could be. And there's a Tyrrell locking up. And that is Mansell. Mansell is stuck on the Armco right at the beginning of the Belgian Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell is in trouble. There's two cars going off to the right, and one of them looks to me like a Benetton, and another one to the left. The pace cars now. Here's a replay, and there you see Senna, Berger, there's Prost, and you can see that was a Lacey, I think, who's locked up. Mansell goes. He's not actually touched the Armco as far as I can see.
Yes, Mansell certainly got hit from behind. He was entirely innocent of that, but he got quite a punt as we now half around the first lap, and that looks like De Cesaris's car stuck in the middle of the circuit. And that is Nakajima.
So right there is Stefano Modena, the Brabham driver. Well, mayhem in the first part of the first lap. Modena, Nakajima, De Cesaris.
And red flag's out, so the race is being stopped. No doubt now they've stopped the race. We'll have plenty of time to look at the action replay, and by the time we've seen it half a dozen times, we might be able to tell you pretty accurately what happened.
Here is the replay. Let's have a look again. And look about halfway down. Look for Nigel Mansell as Berger tucks in behind Ayrton Senna. Prost now watch Mansell. He's on the left. You can see that Nannini is in front of him. Charging up behind him is Lacey. And Mansell is nudged from the back by Nelson Piquet. No doubt about that, because I think Piquet had to move
to avoid Patrese.
A minutely reduced field, but quite a few spare cars, and of course Mansell, who is in the spare cars we've already mentioned, unfortunately also is with the older version of the Ferrari engine. Nelson Piquet is also in his spare car, and as well as Donnelly we have Agura Suzuki as a non-starter.
I just saw somebody going into the pit lane here. I'm looking forward, and it is Pirro. Pirro is going into the pits, and they're going to get the race away, I'm sure, so he will have to be starting from the pit lane. Go! Second time, and Berger tucks in again. Prost is behind Berger. Boutsen sprints up into second place. Thierry Boutsen, the Belgian, in Belgium, is in second place. And Prost and Mansell go round the right-hander together. Keep your fingers crossed, they've got to get round this corner, and away they go.
Yes, I don't think Prost will be very pleased with Berger's start. Berger made a poor start and went whizzing across the grid to try and protect himself, which certainly messed up Prost's run, and he's dropped a lot of places. But he got away, the two Ferraris together, Mansell just behind. So, Senna leads. Tremendous start by Thierry Boutsen in his home Grand Prix, but Berger is getting inside him. Oh, and Boutsen shuts the door. And that was good attacking driving by Boutsen. Boutsen looks very fired up.
Yes, Boutsen's got everything to go for because his Williams drive is at risk. I understand that he's been told that he feels he can find a better drive for next year. He's welcome to try for it. He won in Hungary. If he wins in Belgium here, it would make things difficult for Frank Williams, his team leader. But Boutsen now in second place, chasing his great personal friend Ayrton Senna. There is the gap. Berger is third. Alessandro Nannini in the Benetton Ford is fourth, and that is one of the Minardis. It's Barilla, Paolo Barilla, out, and you can see how badly damaged the front of the car is.
Yes, that looked like he's had quite a big impact there, but happily, and that's to Cesaris' part. It looks as if he's had a spin. Whether that's anything to do with Paolo Barilla's accident or not, we couldn't see from those pictures. But happily, and they've stopped the race again.
After his enormous crash, I'm glad to say that Paolo Barilla, who caused the second race start to be abandoned, is perfectly okay.
Engine still appears to be intact. Now, that's to Cesaris. Now, were they involved together? And that was an oil flag being waved. But the Cesaris' car, it's hard to see what damage. There's obviously a fair bit of derangement now. Well, that's certainly the two of them. Yes, it was an accident between the two. But Barilla's still got all the back end of his car on, and that doesn't... So now what happens? Now what happens next? Barilla's in one piece. He gets going again. How did he get wiped out? With another car? Or was that Martini, the teammate?
Yeah, it was Martini there. It's just a coincidence somehow. Martini going through. I don't think De Cesaris there will be starting here. I noticed when they pushed his car back that the left front was right up in the air. I suspect he may have a right rear puncture, and there is the problem. Well, I'm afraid it's going to take quite a long time to get the Belgian Grand Prix restarted for a third time, because that car is going to have to be lifted off the course with no rear wheels on it at all, no gearbox, and the back of the car dragging along the ground. They would have a heck of a job to get it away, and there might be a possibility of oil leaks in the process. And I can only rather lamely and apologetically say on behalf of Grand Prix racing that it's more than unusual for a Grand Prix to have to be restarted twice. I'm trying to remember when the last one I saw was. I think it was in Austria years ago, when there were, if I remember correctly, 3 restarts. And there is the lifting tackle, and it is Paolo Barilla's Minardi.
Yes, well, I'm glad they got lifting tackle, because with that, hopefully they won't take too long. I don't see a lot of leaked oil or anything on the circuit. Yes, this multiple restart is more a symptom of Formula 2000 and a very flat right rear on De Cesaris' car. Murray was absolutely right. He surmised that was why the left front was sticking in the air. They're very stiff, the suspensions on these modern Grand Prix cars. Very little movement, so if one of the wheels isn't sitting on the ground properly, the one on the opposite corner also behaves strangely. No, Formula 3000 has a habit of multiple restarts, and that, of course, is young, ambitious drivers with talent but limited experience getting very competitive in these races.
Now, here's something to think about. This race was going to be 44 laps. It started and did a lap and was again going to be 44 laps. So they've now done 4 laps, 2 parade laps and 2 racing laps, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if they have to start getting involved either with refuelling, which is undesirable and is going to take a long time, or there will be a reduction in the length of the race.
Yes, I think they'll probably go for a reduction in the length of the race, but certainly, in theory, it should be it's a completely new race because, again, they've hadn't completed 3 laps. And when the race was stopped, in fact they hadn't completed 2 when the race was stopped, and therefore it should be full distance, cars full of petrol, etc., etc. But I think rather than have people refueling on the grid, which is certainly a dangerous manoeuvre with lots of hot metal around, I mean, when I mean hot, I mean very hot. And here we see, no, that is the spin with the other Minardi that took De Cesaris out, and that's Martini letting the car get away, and in fact it looks as if De Cesaris was an innocent victim of that, because just of the glimpse we got there, it looked as if Martini was perpetrating that spin all on his own, and De Cesaris unfortunately had nowhere to go. But this was the big shunt, and we still haven't seen how it happened or why it happened. The only thing that we have seen, which is good news, because it certainly looks as if there was a big impact there, that Paolo Barilla, as he got out of the car and moved over to the barrier, certainly looked to be okay, and that is good news.
It's been an awful season for the Minardi team too, when they were showing so much promise last year. Martini hasn't scored a point, and of course new boy Paolo Barilla, who's come up from sports car racing, similarly hasn't scored a point. The irony of this situation is that Minardi were judged to be so promising and so good last year that Ferrari created a precedent by saying you can have Ferrari V12 Formula One Grand Prix engines next year, Minardi, next year of 1991, of course, and they have been repaid for their faith by the total failure of the Minardi team to score any points. So 2 starts and unsuccessful ones in Belgium. It'll be a while before they get the race going again. As you see, Martini's car being
a little later than the build time, but as you can see there, we're off on the parade lap once again, and hopefully we're set for a 3rd and successful start this time as we rejoin James Hunt and Murray Walker.
Yes, 3rd time lucky, we hope, as you see Senna, Berger and Alain Prost leading round on the parade lap for the 3rd time. Unsurprisingly, Paolo Barilla, who had the complete rear half of his Minardi wiped off, is not starting, but bad luck for Barilla has turned into good luck for Martin Donnelly, who you will have heard from earlier on when he came into the commentary box to join us, because Derek Warwick's car has been repaired and Martin Donnelly will be starting, not from the track but from the pit lane. And since Martin was on 22nd place on the grid anyway, that's not going to be too great a disadvantage for him, as through the picture goes Nakajima and Capelli and Modena. And if the cars were going to have clutch trouble, and as far as I know none of them did for a 2nd start, my goodness, those clutches are going to be even more suspect for a 3rd start. Leading up to Blanchimont now, coming off the new course onto the old course of this 4.3 mile lap. And this won't have done the nerves of some of the drivers much good.
Yes, and in fact, of course, starts put a tremendous load on not just the clutches, but the whole transmission through the differential and the drive shafts particularly, and the joints on the drive shafts. They get a tremendous load when they put all that power through those big sticky rear tires, and there's a big wind-up. So we just keep our fingers crossed that nobody has a transmission failure near the front of the grid just as they get away, because if that happens, we'll almost certainly be back to another restart, because the problem with this narrow area of the track for starting is, of course, that if something happens, a couple of people break, there really is nowhere for the following cars to go, and they accelerate so fast. They're doing huge speeds in the matter of a couple of 100 yards. There's Thierry Boutsen, the local hero, looking to follow his win in the last race.
Start number 3 coming up of the Belgian Grand Prix. Ayrton Senna pole position, Berger second on the grid. Paolo Barilla will not be driving because of the damage to his car in the second start. Martin Donnelly starting from the pit lane. It's going to be 44 laps, which was the full race distance, because refueling has been allowed. Now, as you see, I say again, half the grid is out of sight of the front row of lights, so they'll be looking at the second row. There is the green flag from the back to say it's okay to go. Is Boutsen going to get a flyer this time? No, he's not. Senna leads. Berger second. Prost third. Mansell trying to come on the inside, but Boutsen is ahead of him. Nannini running up alongside the Williams. Are they going to get round Brassos okay this time? Yes, they do. They stream down to Eau Rouge. Senna leads. Berger tight up behind him this time. Prost is third. Boutsen is fourth. Nannini is fifth. Patrese is in sixth place. Senna puts a wheel into the dust as he comes over the crest and starts the long climb up to Les Combes. This is where the problem was in the second start. Senna leads into the right-hander. Berger. Prost is third. Boutsen fourth. Who is in fifth position as they go through? Well, there is the Patrese.
Yes, Patrese made it past Nannini there under braking at the top of the hill. And now Senna not building as he did in the second restart when Boutsen got into second place and was holding the others back just a little bit. The two Williams Renaults there. The car going really well. Now the engine's tremendous, they get their chassis very well balanced, and the Williams Renault team really back to form.
Yes, they only did that after the half-hour warm-up today, because both drivers were complaining that in the half-hour warm-up they were very difficult to drive, but they seem to have made a change to the setup, and both Boutsen and Patrese have benefited from it. But on the first full lap, Ayrton Senna leads. Berger is second. Prost is third. Boutsen's fourth. Patrese is fifth. Nannini is in sixth position. Piquet seventh. Mansell down to eighth. Alesi is ninth. And Capelli is in 10th position as they go round Blanchimont up to the second or third gear bus stop. Left, right, the little short straight. Right, left to come through and complete the lap. Ayrton Senna, world champion of 1988, leads. He has won the Belgian Grand Prix 3 times already. Berger second. Prost in the Ferrari, then the two Williams. Nannini has closed up again on Patrese, who is in 5th position, and they stream down to Eau Rouge again. Now this is the Radion. They take that corner at very nearly 200 miles an hour, and it's almost a case of shutting your eyes and hoping for the best. Not literally, of course. And so now they are on the second lap, and Senna leading up to Les Combes. Well, he's certainly not breaking away. At the end of the first lap after the second start, Senna led by 2.2 seconds. He leads his teammate Gerhard Berger by less than a second on this, the third lap of the 1990 Belgian Grand Prix. There is the Austrian desperately looking still for a placing higher than second. In other words, a win in a McLaren. Now they are approaching the lowest part of the course. This is Le Pont. It's about 150 miles an hour, believe it or not, round this left-hander. Down to Fargne, fourth gear, 135 miles an hour, Thierry Boutsen, and in front of him is Alain Prost. McLaren Honda's first and second. The Ferrari of Prost in front of us is in third position. We're riding with Belgian, Thierry Boutsen in Belgium in the Williams Renault, and you can see the gap between himself and Prost with sparks flying from the skid blocks. Heavy fuel load, of course. This is a 44-lap race. Last year it took an hour and 40 minutes to run it, but last year it was much slower than usual because it's wet. Now, 0.8 of a second was the gap between Senna and Berger at the end of the first lap. They're coming through now to complete another one. Prost is being caught by Boutsen, and Patrese has got Nannini right with him.
Yes, Boutsen very much with the bit between his teeth, going a lot more aggressively than he did in the second restart when he got into second place, and then seemed to be very cautious around the first lap and what existed of the second one. There, seeing from Bootson's cockpit through the magnificent Eau Rouge corner, sparks in his face from the bottoming Ferrari, and of course all the cars will be running on the skids here up to a lesser or greater extent, and into the pits, one of the Tyrrells. It looks like Nakajima to me, but only it's difficult to tell from that angle. Yes, and Nakajima it was. We just checked on our chart. So Prost going through in third place, but under pressure from Boots. Boots, you see as they go downhill, right. Third gear. Boots a bit off the apex, full power there. See him just balancing the car on the steering wheel as he feeds in the power. And there goes Senna. So Senna has lifted up the gap just a little bit, just over the second. And of course, for comfort, Berger will want to be about that distance from Senna, not closer because of the buffeting he gets from the turbulence caused by his car and the lack of grip when his aerodynamics get the interference from the car in front. So yes, there's Nakajima, and that looks like being parked in the garage. So a short afternoon's work for Nakajima.
And we're on lap 3. Senna leads. Was 1 second at the end of the second lap. There's Berger, there's Prost, there's Boutsen. Very close indeed for second place. Senna out of the bus stop to complete his third lap. Now Prost, of course, probably the best tactical head of any of the drivers in this race. He will be happy to keep the McLarens in sight. He's got undoubtedly the best balanced car in the race, as Piquet and Nannini go through in 7th and 6th places respectively, and Prost will be quite happy as long as he can see Berger ahead of him and Senna in front of Berger, because Prost will be able to challenge in the closing stages of the race. But that gap is increasing between himself and Berger up to Les Combes. Senna, Berger, Prost, there's Boutsen in 4th place, Patrese 5th. Nannini still is behind the gearbox of Nannini's Williams-Renault in the Benetton in 6th position. There's his teammate Nelson Piquet in 7th place. And the Benettons too are beautifully balanced here. The new Ford V8 engine seems to get better race by race. We saw how well it went in Hungary, with Nannini in a position to win the race until he was pushed out of it. And there he is, behind Riccardo Patrese. And the gap between Senna in the lead and Patrese in 5th position is only about 3 seconds. And we are on lap 4. That's 1/11th distance. It's a 44-lap race. Senna, of course, will be quite happy. Clear track in front of him. He can see that the gap between himself and Gerhard Berger is increasing. And I suspect that Berger, who just hasn't made it as Senna has in the McLaren team, is going to be worried. He's not making any impression on Ayrton Senna's lead. There goes Nannini through, and this is Alessandro Nannini's Benetton that we are with now. The 6th position man, Riccardo Patrese in front of him, and you can see in front of Patrese's car the Williams-Renault of Boutsen. This is the bus stop. Out of it goes Riccardo Patrese. In the background, Nannini in 6th place. He's pulling away from Nelson Piquet. This is the end of lap 4. We're on the 5th lap then. So, Boutsen now down. This is where the course starts to descend from La Source through Eau Rouge. This is it. To stand at the Armco at the bottom of that hill and watch the cars coming towards you at about 200 miles an hour, not lift off as they go round Radillon and up towards Les Combes, is one of the most thrilling sights in Grand Prix racing. Ayrton Senna now leading Berger by 1.3 seconds. The fastest lap we have so far is that of Ayrton Senna, 1 minute 59.09, compared with the lap record of Alain Prost, 1 minute 57.15 in 1987 in a McLaren. Prost in a Ferrari, of course, this year. Senna leads out of the Malmedy, down towards the Malmedy corner. Now towards Le Pool. There's Patrese, 5th. Nannini in 6th position. And I say again, the positions, if they're going to change, may well do so round about the half distance, because everybody, even at this stage of the race on lap 5, will be still driving with conservation of the tyres in mind.
Yes, of this leading group, with Senna just trying to edging away a tiny bit from Berger. I see both Prost and Boutsen looking in a hurry to get past Berger to take up the chase of Ayrton Senna for the lead. I also see Nannini now running in 6th place, looking for a way past Riccardo Patrese. They're more spread at this side of the circuit, where there are a lot of aerodynamic corners, as they spread through the bus stop to complete lap 5. Boutsen certainly going very well indeed.
Yeah, I was going to say earlier on, but I couldn't believe it, that I think that Berger is actually starting to hold Prost up a bit. But now on lap 6, the race order is Senna leading by 1.5 seconds, Berger 2nd, Prost 3rd, there he is, Boutsen 4th, Patrese 5th, Nannini 6th, Piquet is 7th, Alesi is in 8th position, Nigel Mansell going badly and lapping a full second slower than the leader is 9th, Capelli is 10th, Bernard is in 11th place, Gugelmin is in 12th position, Derek Warwick is 15th, and that is Alain Prost, number 1, the reigning world champion, 3rd place, Ferrari. And Martin Donnelly, who started from the pit lane, is 22nd, and that is Pirro out of the race in the Dallara. Terrible day for them.
Yes, well, Prost is now definitely trying to line up, position himself to have a go at Gerhard Berger, but I don't suppose he's in a huge hurry at the moment, because he can see ahead that Senna isn't getting away fast, and of course that's the big worry, because as well as wanting to get on with things, Prost will be looking after his tyres. He had his fastest lap of the race, in fact his fastest lap of the time going past, but then 2 other people behind, both Benettons who are in clear air, improved on that the last time they went over the line. So the race is speeding up. Senna is opening the gap slowly, gently edging away Gerhard Berger, and you see Prost now starting to pressure Berger. He won't be looking to pass here. He won't even be, I wouldn't think, at La Source at the first gear hairpin, which is one of the passing spots. He'll be looking to get a tow of Senna through Eau Rouge after La Source, get a good run down the hill through Eau Rouge and get the tow on the straight into Les Combes at the top of the hill.
Lap 7, everybody nicely positioned. Boutsen, Patrese, Alessandro Nannini, 6th place. There's Nelson Piquet in 7th position. And it's still only about 5 seconds between 1st and 7th, with a long, long way to go on an extremely demanding and arduous circuit.
Yes, and Prost has lost too much ground there through the bus stop and Eau Rouge to really be in a position, even with a big tow, to get at Berger down the straight. So Prost is maybe going to have to rejig his tactics a bit, because obviously cars vary in performance from one to the other a little bit on different points of the circuit, and it would seem that Prost is quick around all these medium speed corners and can pull right up to Berger, so he may well have to try and get in a position to attack him into the bus stop or something like that.
And the days when the McLaren Hondas could clear off and leave the opposition and run the race as they liked really do seem to be over now, thankfully, because we all want Grand Prix racing to be as close and as spectacular as it can be, and it's certainly that now. Ferrari are within an ace of the McLaren Hondas. There's the proof. Alain Prost starting to push Gerhard Berger very hard indeed. This is lap 7, and the world champion will want, as James has said, to get past Berger, because now Senna is starting to ease away. It's nearly 2 seconds between himself and Gerhard Berger, and if Prost is to do anything about his greatest rival, he's got to move soon. We're with Boutsen, 4th place, approaching the bus stop.
Yes, Boutsen has dropped back a tiny bit, but now you see how close Prost is to Berger here, there. You see, going into the bus stop, very close indeed, and then he'd lost ground out of the bus stop and through La Source to be considerably further back as they exited La Source on the previous lap. He lost a bit through the bus stop there. He's certainly not close enough to make any passing manoeuvre at La Source, but if he's on the power quickly, he should be a lot closer to Berger. And I I think he's losing ground by taking the long way around as he exits La Source. He was much closer than that on the apex, even bearing in mind, of course, that the gap obviously grows in proportion to the velocity.
Senna increased his lead by 0.3 of a second, but there's still very little in it. 2 seconds. He was fastest lap of the race so far. 1 minute 58.7. 1.6 seconds outside the lap record. Boutsen still very close indeed to Alain Prost in third place. The gap between Berger and Prost is only just over half a second. That is the race leader. 48 pole positions, Ayrton Senna. And he has behind him in his distinguished career 24 wins. He said to me last night, I'm going to go on until I feel that I'm losing motivation, and there's no reason for him to lose motivation now. He just signed a marvellous new deal with McLaren, and an option which is thought to be dependent on how McLaren get on with Honda in terms of renewing their contract. Ayrton Senna leads then, and now you can see the gap. Berger, Prost, second and third. Boutsen in the Williams Renault is still fourth. Behind him is teammate Patrese fifth. Nannini is sixth. His teammate Piquet is seventh. And Lacey is eighth. Mansell still ninth.
And Prost is still clearly pressuring, but he does have a certain minor dilemma to deal with, in that he still, at this stage of the race, wants to look after his tyres. But no more experienced person and no better person to find that right balance. Prost not only has the experience, he's got a very capacious intellect, and he will know best what he can do now. Is Prost now you see Prost using that enormous intellect, decided to have a try of doing it the other way and holding tight on the prepared surface coming out of the source. You've got the alternative of going very wide. There's plenty of room there, but whether it's just being a longer way round, what you gain in terms of being able to get the power on, you may well lose in the extra distance travelled. But once again, the problem for Prost is on from the pits, bus stop area through La Source to here, which is where he wants to be good, he is losing ground to Berger. Now for the rest of the lap, he claws his way back up to Berger, but there isn't really an obvious passing spot for Prost on that particular half of the lap.
Lap 9. Senna is increasing his lead just by 1/10 of a second here and 1/10 of a second there, lap by lap. He's now done 3 fastest laps in succession, each one of course faster than the previous one, leading by 2.2 seconds. Doesn't sound much, but we are now on lap 9 of this 44-lap race, coming up to quarter distance as you look at Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell in 8th position, chasing Nelson Piquet, and behind him is Nigel Mansell. Mansell's only a second or so behind Alesi, but the Ferrari doesn't seem to be able to do anything about it. Remember that Nigel Mansell is in the spare Ferrari with the older engine, which, as James said earlier on, may not have quite the speed of the new one, but it has proven to be more reliable so far. Senna exits the bus stop. Now it looks to me as though Prost is challenging. He's closer to Berger than he was on the previous lap. Boutsen fourth, Patrese fifth. There is Nannini in 6th position. And again, Senna has made a faster lap. 1 minute 58.2. His lead has gone up to 3.2 seconds. I really do think now that Berger is holding people up.
And this time I think Prost was close enough to Berger. Yes, Berger is definitely holding people up. Prost is closer, but will he be close enough to get the toe? And of course Berger, being a bit further from Senna now, is picking up less toe along the straight from Senna than he was earlier on. Prost has got to worry about the Williams Renaults, of course, because with their tremendous power, they're going to be threatening him from behind if he can't do something about Berger. And Berger does seem to be a problem in that Prost's car is relatively quick in the wrong half of the lap, is relatively quick to Berger's, that is. So Boutsen's car now. Boutsen's got a particularly good view of the battle in front, well, the battle he's part of, which is really for Berger's second place. Prost's is prime candidate, Boutsen's next, and Patrese is right behind him.
Now they're approaching the lowest part of the course. That's the next right-hander. Stavelot is it. And it's an indication of how very close the performance of the modern Grand Prix cars are. Prost right up with Berger, Boutsen right up with Prost. 3 different makes of car, 3 different engines. Only Ayrton Senna is away out now with a lead of over 3 seconds. And remember that he had a clear start from pole position, and Senna has got a special kind of brilliance, especially in these circumstances, with the stimulus and the incentive of a hat-trick of wins, 3 in succession, 1988, 89 and 90, stretching before him. Boutsen exits the bus stop. From there, and he comes out of the bus stop at about 130 miles an hour, and just a few yards later he's doing 160. Prost running wide. You remember that was the corner that, to me, last year, Nigel Mansell pioneered in the wet, because lap after lap he was trying to get past Alain Prost, then in the McLaren, and failing to do so by running very, very wide indeed at the right-hand exit of La Source. Now up to Les Combes, highest part of the course. The mist that we were worried about coming down and interfering with visibility happily has not done so. Prost there. Behind him, Boutsen. Behind him, 5th position for Tracy. No change.
Yes, and Boutsen is getting pretty close to Prost on that long straight coming up to Les Combes, with the power of the Renault coming away from La Source and through Eau Rouge, and Prost is going to have to watch his rear there, which makes it pretty difficult when you're trying to attack a driver in front and you've got somebody attacking you from behind and you're caught in the sandwich, because you've got to have eyes very much in the back of your head as well as the front for this one, and that means tremendous pressure, because of course if you make a daring attack at the car in front of you that doesn't quite work, then of course you lose time and you get gobbled up by the person behind, so it all becomes rather fine balance. There's Nigel Mansell, but Mansell struggling now in 10th position in the race and quite clearly not lapping very well. Ivan Capelli has passed him now from the 9th place that he was in.
Yes, this season is turning out to be one that Nigel Mansell, and it's supposed to be his last one if he doesn't change his mind and find that World Championship winning package, which looks less and less likely now, because he's already failed to finish in 7 of the 10 Grand Prix that we've already had. And Ayrton Senna on lap 12 is now leading by 2.7 seconds, Gerhard Berger. You can see the gap between Berger, Prost, Boutsen and Nannini, and it could be anybody's second position at any time, with Nannini still in 6th position, some 3.7 seconds ahead of his teammate Nelson Piquet, who has just done his fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 58.9, which is 0.4 of a second slower than Senna. But Senna certainly can't afford to relax. There's Berger. Gerhard Berger, who is in 3rd position in the World Championship, and into the pits comes Nigel Mansell. Yes, I said it was an unhappy race for him. Now, why? Is this mechanical problem? Well, they're changing the tyres, as they always do, and they've changed them very quickly, and that would seem to be the problem, and I find that very surprising indeed, that after only 11 laps, Nigel decides to come in for new tyres. Any view, James?
Well, I think there was more problem than that, but maybe if he's just plain unhappy with the handling of the car, he's hoping that a fresh set of tyres will sort that out, and that, of course, you can't start really fiddling with the settings on the car in a stop like that, but I think that may have been a stop through depression and or lack of interest as much as anything else, because tactically, certainly, he was going quick enough, he could have soldiered on the tyres that he had, but let's keep fingers crossed and hope that it improves the handling of the car. It sometimes can. You've got a rogue set that isn't working very well. So back with the leaders, and Senna goes through, Berger through, Prost still really has now had time to weigh Berger up, but he certainly hasn't shown us any threat of getting past him, or even an obvious place where he can stage the attack. And if anybody's been doing any threatening, Boutsen, to me, has looked more of a threat for Prost's position. Anyway, new fastest lap of the race for Alain Prost, because he had a little bit of clear air. And of course, the times for all the leading cars are coming down. This lap record, or fastest lap, will take quite a pummeling as long as the circuit stays dry and clean for a while as the fuel load lightens. And I'm quite sure the old lap record, as long as, I say, conditions stay correct and normal, dry and no funny slipperiness, that lap record will take a beating today.
Prost's fastest lap so far, exactly 1 second outside his own lap record of 1987, 1 minute 57.1 his lap record, but with Boutsen again, you see, and I'm delighted. Not that he'll be able to hear me, but the Belgian producer is giving us so much of the on-car camera from Thierry Boutsen's car. There are actually 2 forward-facing cameras on Nannini and Piquet's cars as well. We've only seen a flash from Nannini's. Hopefully we'll see more of that. Although he's got, he's got Patrese in front of him in 5th position, only a second away at the moment. And as you watch the battle for second between Gerhard Berger, and it's getting closer because Prost, you can see the gap there. Boutsen is dropping back in 4th position. And the order on lap 13 out of 44 as they join the old circuit is Senna leading, Berger 2nd, Prost 3rd, Boutsen 4th, Patrese 5th, Nannini 6th, Piquet 7th, Alesi 8th, Capelli 9th, Gugelmin 10th.
Looks as if Prost's going to try and have a go into the bus stop. Yeah, well, he came out to have a little look, and he's certainly putting Berger under pressure here. Boutsen still perfectly placed to pick up the pieces. Prost definitely seems to lose more than just where a gap opens from the advantage of hitting the throttle first with acceleration each time coming out of that source. He really seems to lose just enough for it to be critical. And it is significant too that when Boutsen's been even reasonably close to him, he's been threatening him by the end of this straight. Now, as we go down the hill through the long, fast sweeps, you'll see Prost close right back up on Berger. He's already noticeably closer, and this is where he would have a big advantage had he got clear air. Even in all that turbulence from the McLaren, he's still quicker through the corners, but through these fast sweeps there really is no place to make any sort of sensible overtaking manoeuvre.
That's Alesi in 8th position with Capelli 9th behind him in the Leighton House car. And now Senna's lead has increased to 3.1 seconds over Gerhard Berger, who's got to worry very hard now. You can see why. Nigel Mansell, incidentally, is right down to 16th position after his pit stop, and I'm afraid his Belgian Grand Prix is effectively over. Yet another failure for Mansell, who's only finished in the points 3 times this year. Mexico, Canada and Brazil. Prost, as James has pointed out now, is he going to have a go at the bus stop here? Because he's got to get through here, and the picture changes, and that's absolutely maddening. But he'll be going past us very shortly. There is Senna, there is Prost, and Prost is through. Alain Prost is up into 2nd position. Now, here is the gap, and we're watching very closely for you. The producer missed that. Boutsen is up with Berger. The gap between Senna and Prost is 4.7 seconds.
Well, I'm discouraged from saying it, but it's fact. Now, there is Prost going through. Well, at least we got to see it, but the producer must be completely incompetent because it was obvious it was going to happen, and he cut to something that wasn't happening. It really was a disgrace. Anyway, Prost is through, and in fact, Boutsen was having a look at Berger, and Boutsen very well placed on the straight. He's in the tow. And Berger is going to fight to hold the place. Berger does. Berger, a brave man. And Berger holds on to 3rd, but I don't think he'll be holding that for long. Boutsen definitely got a straight line advantage there, and of course Berger still had the tow from Prost's car, and as Boutsen pulled out, he won't have it, but Prost is going to pull away a bit, and he won't have that help in a couple of laps' time, and Boutsen will then have him, I would imagine, at his mercy as they come up the straight.
Yeah, and it's very critical for Thierry Boutsen. Not only is he a Belgian in Belgium, fighting for his place in the Williams team, but he's also fighting for 3rd position in the World Championship. After his win in Hungary, he is only 2 points behind the man who's in front of him in the race, and that's that man, Gerhard Berger. And Berger is currently on 4 points, Boutsen on 3 points. So Thierry Boutsen can get one of those points he needs if he can get ahead of Berger and, of course, stay there. Lap 15 now, and Prost is 4.6 seconds still behind Senna, but is he gaining? Well, he's certainly pulling away from Berger.
Yes, it'll be very interesting to see how much quicker Prost can go now that he's in clear air. He's certainly pulled out a very significant slice of clear air for one lap. Now, Senna over the line. And Prost, new fastest lap of the race as soon as he got to clear air, a 1:57.9, and he's already taken a little bit off that gap, as we see from Boutsen's car. A bit of breakup, unfortunately, there. But not close enough this time, I think, to mount the attack on Berger on this part of the circuit, which is where one would expect it to come.
0.8 of a second off the lap record, but more importantly, 4.4 seconds behind Senna. And it was 4.6, and this is going to be the first full lap where Prost has had a clear track in front of him without the distraction of Berger. And he lapped in 1 minute 57.9, the fastest lap of the race, and the race order on lap 16 out of 44, as you watch the second place man, Senna leading Prost by 4.4 seconds. Prost is now 2.3 seconds ahead of Berger, third, who's got Boutsen right behind him, fourth. Then Nannini, 3 seconds back. Patrese is in 6th position, ahead of Piquet 7th, Alesi 8th, Capelli 9th, Gugelmin his teammate 10th.
Yes, and while we were watching the big battle for second place, Nannini, who's been pressing Patrese for some laps now, already from the start of the race, has gone past him.
And I've just seen a McLaren go past my commentary box, and there it is. It went past so quickly that I didn't see who it was, and I can't tell you now, but there is Alain Prost. And I'm watching now the lap charting as Alain Prost goes up to the bus stop. I do not see Senna now. Alain Prost, here he is, he's approaching the bus stop now. Now we'll see what the situation is as the little Frenchman goes up to the left, the right, and the left out again. This is lap 16 coming up, and there is Berger with Boutsen. Senna is still in the lead.
Yeah, no, that wasn't a McLaren. That was one of the Italian ones. And Prost came back to the race. Another new fastest lap. He is definitely reducing Senna's lead. 4.1 seconds now. So over 0.4 of a second knocked off that time. And Prost is definitely got Senna well in his sights. But when I say that, he's got to catch him first, which will be the relatively easy part of the job. The difficult bit of the job, as we see Boutsen well placed now, also to attack Berger.
Yes, my apologies for that. It must have been a red and white Dallara that went whipping past my eye line. Indeed it was. And Ayrton Senna is leading by 4.1 seconds. Prost second, Berger really struggling. You saw him lock up there. In third position, trying to stave off the man you're watching, number 5, Thierry Boutsen, 4th place. He is followed 2.7 seconds later by Alessandro Nannini in the Benetton Ford, 5th. Patrese is 6th. Piquet is 7th. Alesi is 8th. Capelli 9th, Gugelmin 10th, Bernard 11th, Modena is in 12th position, Derek Warwick is running in 13th place, Nigel Mansell is 16th, and Thierry Boutsen now has got Gerhard Berger increasingly closer to him, and I'm waiting for Senna to go through. 4.1 seconds was the gap at the end of the 16th lap. We're coming up now, waiting for them to go through. Now there is Boutsen that we're with. Ahead of it is Gerhard Berger, the Austrian, and the McLaren Honda. And as James has repeatedly pointed out, the Renault technicians have done a superlatively good job with that V10 engine, which is now on a par with the Honda. Now Senna has gone through, and the gap is down to 3.6 seconds. Prost went round 0.6 of a second faster than Senna and is definitely reeling the Brazilian in. There is the battle for third. Berger is there. Boutsen is 4th. Nannini is 5th. Patrese is in 6th position. They're dropping down towards Eau Rouge, Rédillon. Now the climb up to Les Combes. Now we'll see how the Honda V10 compares with the Renault V10. Berger third. It is wheel tracks, Thierry Boutsen. That is Nannini, and Nannini is 2.5 seconds behind Boutsen, and he is actually lapping faster than the Belgian. All right, just 0.2 of a second faster, but faster is faster, and he's gaining on the Williams Renault ahead of him. As you look at them drop down from the highest point of the course into the right-hander at Malmedy. That is a third gear, 120 miles an hour corner, still dropping down to Le Pour.
I wonder if somebody's put a bit of oil on the circuit or something, because I noticed the field as a whole had lap times have slowed just by about a second a lap up at the front. Lazy has dropped back a long way from Piquet. He's got the two Leighton Houses behind him, and Lazy, as he rather predicted before the race, I think is struggling for grip with his Pirelli tyres. A race tyre is always a struggle on the quicker circuits. Very good on the slower and the street circuits, good qualifiers, but they haven't yet quite mastered the race tyre for the quicker circuits. And the Leighton House drivers will no doubt be being held up, be keen to get past. Now, Berger and Boutsen. Boutsen is perfectly placed, but I would suggest that he doesn't want to run wide. Oh, and Berger's gone for the pits. Berger into the pits as Boutsen goes through, so Berger no doubt for tyres at this stage. Berger is a hard driver. We see the way he throws the car about, fights it, and that could well be, that's not good for looking after tyres in the early part of a race.
Oh, he's lost time and distance there. It may pay off later, but I tend to doubt it all. I remember earlier on this year, Berger did exactly the same thing, and it did pay a benefit. And so, there is Senna. And into the pits now comes Riccardo Patrese. Well, we're getting a lot more tyre wear than we expected. Berger's been in, and now Patrese.
Patrese looked like a retirement speed, not a tyre change, though. And very much so, yes. They'll know already what's wrong with the car. He would have been telling them over the radio as he came in, so he will already have said this is terminal. And disappointment for the Williams team. They've been showing very, very well recently.
What we haven't had a chance to tell you is that Alain Prost is continually to carve small slices off the leader's lead. That is him, Ayrton Senna. He's now 3.3 seconds ahead of Prost, who's lapping consistently at least 0.2 of a second faster than Ayrton Senna, who is approaching the end of the 19th lap in this 44-lap race, hotly pursued by the red Ferrari, the scarlet Ferrari of Prost. That is Warwick in the pits in his Lotus. It looks like a tyre stop from the way the mechanics are handling the jacks, and you can see the board out. Now it goes away. Derek Warwick rejoins. He was in 15th place, but he will have lost time and distance there. And Boutsen has still got Gerhard Berger that distance in front of him. And Senna's lead is now down to under 3 seconds. Prost has gone round in 1 minute 57.8, which is another fastest lap. He is 2.9 seconds behind Senna. He will soon get the real excitement and stimulation of seeing that McLaren getting big in front of him. And Senna is lapping 1 minute 58.2, 4/10 slower.
Yes, and Boutsen just passed lapping one of the Delaras there. And Berger has rejoined. He's now running in 6th place behind Nelson Piquet. Very close behind Nelson Piquet, in fact.
And on this, the 20th lap, Ayrton Senna leading. There he is, Alain Prost by 2.9 seconds. Boutsen is third, 6 seconds behind Prost. Nannini in the Benetton is 2.5 seconds behind Boutsen. Piquet, Nannini's teammate, is 5th, so both the Benettons are in the top 6. Gerhard Berger rejoined after his tyre stop in 6th position, and we'll soon see whether it was a benefit, and if so, how much of a benefit, because I know the tyres in the warm-up this morning, even the harder compound ones, were going off very quickly indeed after as short a distance as 2 or 3 laps. Alesi is 7th, Gugelmin is 8th, ahead of his teammate now, Capelli, who is 9th. Bernard is in 10th position in the Lola. Stefano Modena is 11th. Alex Cappy is 12th. And Nigel Mansell is 14th.
Senna won't be looking forward to reaching that gaggle of 3 backmarkers in front of him, and Nigel Mansell getting out of his car. So it obviously was much more than just a tyre change, his problems before that. And that's Derek Warwick having a go at Donnelly, the Lotus twins, as they've become during the year. Very little to separate them at nearly every race, but Senna will be desperately hoping that they see him.
Yes, indeed he will, because I remind you that Prost was previously catching Senna, who's got to get past Donnelly, then Warwick, then Briard, who is leading this bunch, and will be significantly slower than the McLaren of Ayrton Senna. And now you can see there's Donnelly, there's Senna, he's really going for it, and he's on the inside, he's past Briard, and so for that matter is the Lotus. And of course now Alain Prost is going to have the problem of catching and passing the 2 Lotus cars and the Osella of Briard. Ayrton Senna has now got past all 3 of them because he takes Martin Donnelly on the inside. Now let's look and see where Alain Prost is. Hopefully we'll get a long enough shot to see whether the gap, and in the pits is Alesi, in for a new set of Pirelli tyres. Alesi, who was in 9th position. But what about the battle for the lead, Senna and Prost?
Well, Prost has got the gap down under 3 seconds now, 2.9. But of course the traffic will be very much the dominant factor over the gap in the immediate future. But of course it's opportunism time for Prost. First of all, he's got to get right onto Senna's tail, and then he's got to hope that the traffic may help him get past, because getting past Senna in a clean situation is going to be a very big task indeed. We saw the difficulty he had in finding a way past Berger, and incidentally Donnelly would seem to be having a good race, because he's starting from the pit lane and he's made up quite a few places already, and he's now pulling away from that little group, including his own teammate Derek Warwick. Now Prost has still got Martin to deal with, but I'm sure he won't cause him any grief and things. In fact, Donnelly into the pits.
2.8 seconds was the gap between Senna and Prost. It is now 4.1 seconds. So in lapping Warwick, Donnelly and Briard, Senna has benefited. The old story. Senna, in the words of Alain Prost himself, seems to have an uncanny knack of getting past tail-enders or midfield men that he's lapping better than Prost does. And the gap nearly doubled in that 1 lap, and that's Boutsen. That is Thierry Boutsen out of his own Belgian Grand Prix on lap 22. Something has finished his race very obviously.
Yes, and he's parked it just opposite the pits, and it looks like a mechanical failure. The car seems to have 4 wheels on it. So an unfortunate day for the Williams team, because Riccardo Patrese, remember, is already out with what appeared to be some mechanical trouble as he pulled into the pits at least. And there's Boutsen just undressing.
So with Thierry Boutsen out, as is his teammate, it's Ayrton Senna leading on lap 22 by 4 seconds from Alain Prost. Up into 3rd position goes Alessandro Nannini. To 4th position goes Nelson Piquet. To 5th goes Gerhard Berger, who has changed tyres. 6th now in the points are Leighton House, driven by Gugelmin. In 7th position, his teammate Capelli. Then in 8th position, Eric Bernard. And in 10th position, Modena, now that Alesi has been in for tyres. And that is the world champion, Alain Prost. 4.1 seconds was the gap at the end of 21 laps, and it's almost the end of the 22nd lap, so we'll be able to compare the gaps. It was 2.9, then 4.1, and it's Senna! Now, Prost Prost leads. Andy Prost comes into the pits. This is going to be really exciting. Let's watch this. Alain Prost now up on the jack. Senna is out, and the Ferrari mechanics get the tyres on. Prost blast out, and he's still in second position, and both he and Senna are on new tyres.
Yes, so that was a pit stop race for the McLaren and Ferrari team with a slight start to McLaren, which they actually increased their lead. Now, Senna come out right in front of Nannini, and he won't want Nannini to pass him. Nannini is on hot tyres, knows what he's doing. Likewise, he'd like to get clear of Senna, who will have to feel his way around a little bit. Now, Senna's taking the inside into the corner, making Nannini go the long way around. And he's held on to it, and he only needs now to go through the twisty bits, get his tyres working really properly, and he will pull away. In the meantime, Prost has got traffic between them, and that's traffic that they're racing, because Nannini, of course, is ahead of Prost on the road now in the race.
Yeah, Nannini, I remind you, was pushed off the course by Ayrton Senna at the last Grand Prix in Hungary and lost his possible chance of winning. And after the race, he said, I didn't like that, and I'm not going to forget it. Now, I'm not suggesting that he's going to try and push Senna off, but I am suggesting that he's going to be trying even harder than he might normally be doing, not to let the McLaren get away. And on lap 23, with Senna and Prost both having changed tyres, it is Senna leading, Prost second, Nannini that you're looking at in third position, Piquet is fourth, so both the Benettons now are in the top 4 places. Berger, who has also changed tyres, is fifth, Gugelmin is sixth, and we're coming now towards the end of the 23rd lap as the second and third men, Senna, McLaren Honda, Nannini, Benetton Ford, go round a Blanchimont, that 6th gear, 180 miles an hour corner, brake, go down into third gear, into the bus stop, and you saw in the background the car in fourth position, Nelson Piquet. The leader is about to cross the line, and at the end of the 23rd lap, Ayrton Senna with Alain Prost going up to La Source in third. There is Senna, there is Nannini second, Prost is third. 3.8 seconds separates first and third, and Olivier Griard is in the pits in the Osella. We need to be looking at the race for the lead, because this is a repetition in many ways of Hungary, and they're coming up to tail enders again, and it's Donnelly.
And Nannini got a pretty good toe off Senna. Remember that the Ford engine is now one very good competitive engine in Nannini's car. They've got it better and better, and he seems to be able to live with everybody on the straights. And in fact, he will be a considerable problem for Prost if he can catch this leading pair and join in the battle. So Nannini, remember, has not stopped at this stage of the race. They started the race on the same compound as both McLaren and Ferrari, and I think it would be optimistic of them to try and go the race on the one set, but we will see.
Yeah, I talked to Rory Byrne, the Benetton designer, just before the race began, and he said, I think we may surprise everybody by our tactics, which I took to mean going through non-stop. But of course, Nannini's tyres will have worn more than Senna's new set. Senna's definitely got an advantage. Donnelly ahead of the Brazilian in the Lotus, and Donnelly is in 17th place as Thierry Boutsen walks in to report to the Williams pit. He's got to go the long way round. He's got to cross the course. And Senna and Nannini, and Senna has got ahead then of Donnelly. As we look at Thierry Boutsen, sadly we can't hear what he's saying, but it would be in French anyway, so a lot of us wouldn't understand. And there's Senna. Nannini has got past Donnelly. The status quo is back to where it was, and Prost is catching Nannini. So on lap 25, Senna, Nannini, Prost.
Prost's new tyres are certainly working, because he just done a new fastest lap of the race by over 1 second. And I think it'd be true to say that the leader's tyres had gone off a bit as they went in, because I noticed, remember I called it about 3 or 4 laps before the leaders went in for the pits, and everybody's lap time seemed to have just slowed down a little bit, and that was clearly the tyres going off. Now Prost, who was some 4.6 seconds behind Senna at the end of that first lap after their pit stops, is now only just over 1.5, 1.7 seconds behind Senna, but of course he's got Donnelly, or Warwick as it, in front of him. And in fact it's Warwick, of course, and he's made it past there, because that would, through the twisty section of the circuit, he could lose a fair bit of time. But Prost certainly getting plenty of grip out of his new set of tyres.
And that's a new lap record, 1 minute 56.466 compared with Alain Prost's previous lap record in the McLaren 1987, 1 minute 57.15. And you can see he's getting closer and closer to Alessandro Nannini. There he is. And Nannini has got a problem between him. It's Martini in the Minardi. Senna's already passed him. You just saw the Brazilian disappearing out of sight round the left-hander. And now if Nannini desperately needs to get past Martini as they come up to the bus stop, because Prost is bearing down on the Benetton and Martini moves over and lets Nannini through. He couldn't let Prost through because he was on the wrong line. And Ayrton Senna has gone through to complete his 25th lap as Nannini, followed by Prost, taking Martini. And the gap is 3.3 seconds now between Senna leading and Nannini second. And Senna was exactly 2 seconds faster than Nannini on that lap. And he's really got the hammer down. So has Alain Prost, who's now got to do something about the Italian in front of him, who won the Japanese Grand Prix last year, Alessandro Nannini in the Benetton, second in Germany, and that is Piquet in the pits. New set of Goodyear tyres, and there's a problem at the back. You can see this is a very, very long stop. 14.4 seconds. Well, there was a problem with both the left and the right rears, and Alain Prost does not seem to have a problem. He's absolutely delighted with the handling of the Ferrari in this race.
But a big hurry now for Prost to find a way round Sandro Nannini, because Senna on fresh rubber is going to pull away at least a second a lap from Nannini, I would guess. Probably more like a second and a half, or certainly for the next half a dozen laps or so before the initial freshness of the tyres goes away.
Lap 26, Senna leads Nannini by 3.4 seconds. You can see how close Prost in third place is to the Benetton. Gerhard Berger is up into fourth place, 10 seconds behind Prost. Piquet is fifth, 8 seconds behind Berger. Gugelmin is sixth, and Capelli, his teammate, is in seventh position. Eighth is Bernard. Ninth, what is Alesi after his tyre stop. And now this is Prost's opportunity. This is where he's good at getting past at the bus stop. And he's up alongside Nannini. No, he's not. He's just behind the gearbox of the Benetton. They accelerate as one out of the bus stop as Senna goes through to complete the lap. Nannini, Prost, 5.6 seconds. Now Senna has broken the lap record. 1 minute 56.1 to lead by getting on for 6 seconds.
Yes, and when I said a second and a half, in fact he's lapped 2 seconds quicker than Nannini, and this is going to be very disturbing for Prost, because once again he hasn't been particularly quick through Eau Rouge when in the turbulence of following another car, and I don't think he's going to be in a position to go attack under braking here. We saw him have a go at the bus stop, but Nannini looked like a man who doesn't want to be passed, so he isn't that angry with Senna that he wants to wave Prost by to go and do something about him, when quite clearly Nannini has no chance whatsoever of keeping up with Senna at the moment. Prost, of course, as well as being in a terrible rush to get past Nannini, won't want to hurt this fresh set of tyres by overstraining it when it's pretty new. So again, he will have to balance attack with a certain amount of defence of his fresh set of tyres, which doesn't, of course, make the problem any simpler to deal with. Now, this is where he'll want to be close so that he can get a run into the bus stop, but that is a place that's fairly easily defendable by the driver ahead, and if Nannini decides he doesn't want to let Prost pass him there, it won't be difficult for him to block it.
19 cars still running out of the race. Nakajima, Pirro, Patrese, Mansell, Thierry Boutsen, both the Williams Renaults out in Bootson's home country, and the battle for second comes up to the bus stop again. This is and Prost is trying early this time, and he's through. Alain Prost moves up into second position. He got up alongside Nannini far enough before the corner. There's the replay. Prost goes through on the inside to take second place.
Yes, and he got a good run out of the last corner, but it's really cost him, because Prost now has to start the chase of Senna from 7.6 seconds down, and that's all happened over a couple of laps, courtesy of Nannini. That's not to say it was Nannini's fault. He's on older rubber, and he had every right to fight for second place that he had. But that's a 7-second penalty. You just saw Senna's car disappear to the right there as Prost came into shot, as we came over the hill. And that is Nannini's car.
With Alain Prost ahead. Now, you can see that how far Prost has pulled away since he passed Nannini just before the start of this, the 28th lap in this 44 lap, with Ayrton Senna leading Alain Prost by 7.6 seconds. Prost, the distance that you can see ahead of Nannini, who we are riding with, in third place. Berger is fourth. Gugelmin is fifth. Piquet is sixth. Capelli is seventh. Bernard and Alesi eighth and ninth. And now I think Alessandro Nannini, who has not stopped, will be starting to worry, or will need to worry, about retaining his third position, because Gerhard Berger on new rubber is lapping a second faster than him, and Berger is in fourth place, 9 seconds behind.
Yes, and Nannini's really gone past the point of no return as far as stopping for tyres is concerned, because we're well over half distance of this race now, and he would be pushed to catch up again the time that a pit stop would cost him, particularly when you calculate in the deceleration and acceleration time as well. Now, another new lap record for Ayrton Senna, knocks it under 156, 155.963, but Prost has stopped the rot. His first flying lap there was half a second slower than Senna, but I suspect his next lap will be a bit quicker, Prost, because he will still be playing himself into that speed on the new tyres now that he's got a clear run.
Yes, it's another vintage demonstration by Ayrton Senna, who is driving a copybook race. There he is out on his own, leading his Grand Prix again, on his way at the moment to his 25th Grand Prix win, unless Alain Prost could do something about it. Into the pits, by the way, has come Pierluigi Martini, who's been lapped and is in 15th position in the Minardi. As you watch Senna, Prost 8 seconds behind, but lapping now just half a second slower and speeding up, pulling away from Nannini third, who is being caught by Berger fourth. The gap between Berger fourth and Nannini third is just over 8 seconds. Gugelmin 33 seconds in fifth place behind Berger, and just 1 second ahead of Piquet. So Piquet is challenging for fifth position. Nelson Piquet, who's having a really superb season and has signed again for the Benetton team, who've got a massive injection of additional sponsorship for next year. And Piquet's already had a second, a third, 2 fourths, a fifth and 2 sixth places this year to give him fifth position in the World Championship. So Senna into the bus stop again, left, right, left, taking an immaculate line, keeping off the curb so as not to derange the suspension, over the start and finish line to complete his 29th lap in this 44 lap race, and Prost goes through. Senna just gone round in 1 minute 55.999. He's still lapping faster than Prost, 0.2 of a second faster than Prost, as a result of which he is now 8.2 seconds ahead of the Frenchman's Ferrari. And Prost similarly is lapping considerably faster than Nannini on worn tyres, who has got Berger now only 7.5 seconds behind him. So Berger is inching into that gap between himself and Alessandro Nannini, who will be starting, I suspect, to rue the decision that was made not to come in for tyres. And Pirro looks as though he's coming in for good in the Dallara, smoking badly at the back through the breather pipe. And Emanuele Pirro, the Roman, who was suffering from hepatitis at the beginning of the year, as a result of which he missed 2 Grand Prix, is not going to finish here in Belgium as Senna drops down towards Le Pool. In fact, he's out of Le Pool now, on towards the right-hander at Fargne, then the left-hander, 4th gear, 135 miles an hour, still dropping, going up a gear, building his speed to about 155, back into 3rd gear for the right-hander at Rome, up into 5th for the right-hander at Stavolo. Now he rejoins the old course, and there is Piquet ahead of Gugelmin in 5th position, Gugelmin 6th, and where is Capelli? Well, in the background you see the left Minardi of Pierluigi Martini, and there are still 18 cars in this race out of the 26 who started. Not bad for these days, and because it's a tough and demanding course here in Belgium, and the Benetton charges on, and that is Pirro, who certainly has finished his Belgian Grand Prix with a stop just before. He's gone on the escape road from the bus stop. You saw those polystyrene blocks in front of him. And Ayrton Senna up through Radeon, the very, very fast corner, exiting Eau Rouge, climbing to Les Combes again. You can see the flags waving all around the course, the French flags, plenty of Brazilian flags, and you can see from the position of the, not the little bouncing balls, but the yellow and the green spots where Senna and Prost are on the course. And Senna is coming down to Malmedy now, the right-hander. Prost, 7.6 seconds, and now Prost is now, maybe Prost has decided it is time to go, because he lapped half a second quicker than Senna on the previous lap. He's 7.6 seconds ahead, so another 10 laps or so, and he could be with the Brazilian, and we're on lap 31.
Yes, but I think for Prost that half a second gained on that lap was, his lap time was the same as before, very much the same, and Senna had a little bit of a hold-up with traffic, and these two look very evenly matched, and it looks as if that 7 seconds that Prost lost behind Nannini could be absolutely critical when it comes to the end of the race. Right now, the McLaren and Ferrari, when in clear traffic, are lapping within a tenth or two of each other all the time. Now, behind that, Berger is still closing in slowly, gently on Nannini, whose tyres seem to be holding up pretty well so far. But remember, of course, as the race gets nearer to the end, so the drop-off in performance is likely to become sharper and sharper with the very worn tyres.
Yes, you're seeing Griard now being chased by Alesi, and the car in front of Senna that he had to lap, and I suspect he has by now, was Alex Cappy in the Arrows.
Yes, and while Senna was losing time being held up, Prost has now gone a new lap record, only less than a tenth of a second faster than Senna's previous one, so that confirms what I was just saying, that these cars are very, very evenly matched. So traffic could play a part, but they'll have to play a part in holding Senna up and letting Prost catch, which is unlikely with Senna's known brilliance at dealing with the traffic, combined, of course, with his preparedness to take a certain amount of risk, or certainly more risk than Prost will take, as Prost is not taking the risk there, behind Alboreto, who he's coming up to lap, and Alboreto is very experienced, and that is just the problem. There's no way Senna wouldn't have gone past Alboreto there, and he does intimidate the drivers, that's part of it. And I beg your pardon, still looking, and unsuccessfully. And that's cost Prost a lot of time in races, with battles with Senna over the last couple of seasons, particularly 2 years ago, when they were battling for the championship in the turbo days. And this, of course, must be one of the last turbo lap records that has finally gone. Remember, it was Prost's 87, and that was a more powerful turbo than we finished with. It was his 87 record that we were looking at, and there can't be many from the late, not lamented turbo era.
Well, Michele Alboreto was singularly reluctant to let Prost through. Here's a replay of Prost going through on the inside, You see, Alboreto is another man that we may not be seeing in Grand Prix racing next year. His greatest days are behind him. He finished second in the World Championship for Ferrari in 1985, I think it was. And he's got a new flaw in the arrows, as a result of which the handling and aerodynamics are much better, and he was desperately trying to hold his place. And now Senna is over 10 seconds ahead of Prost.
And he set another new lap record. So the Senna and Prost are trading lap records and battling away. But of course we've got this 8-second implant of a gap when Alain Prost got stuck. Well, Senna was very brave, fought Nannini as he came out of the pits and was able to stay in front with some slightly questionable tactics, I might add. And Nannini, I'm sure, will have some questions to ask about that after the race, if he talks to Senna at all anymore after Hungary, which I think is questionable. But it could very well be decisive. Prost lost time with traffic then, more time than Senna had lost with the previous lap. As a result, Prost is now over 10 seconds behind.
On lap 33, Senna leads Prost by 10.4 seconds. Nannini third, 7 seconds behind Prost. Berger is fourth, now only 4.1 seconds behind Nannini. Remember what I said, Berger is closing all the time on Nannini. Fifth is Nelson Piquet, but nearly over 40 seconds behind Berger. Sixth is Gugelmin, seventh is Capelli, eighth is Alesi, ninth is Bernard, 10th is Alex Caffey, 11th is Michele Alboreto, who you've just seen lapped by the man you're watching, race leader Ayrton Senna, coming through to complete his 33rd lap. It was 10.4 seconds lead that he had over Alain Prost. Down through the gears, hard on the brakes goes the Brazilian. 1 minute 55.585, another lap record. Senna has broken the lap record now, lap after lap, and he's now 11 seconds ahead of Alain Prost. And I think now, in the time that is left, because we're on lap 34, 10 laps to go now, and there is Berger. Now, Nannini has got Berger only 2.5 seconds in front of him. You are watching the battle now for third position, with the prospects of McLaren Hondas being first and third. First in the hands of Senna, third in the hands of Berger. If the Austrian can get past the Italian, Gerhard Berger can pass Sandro Nannini very shortly, and if we can find a picture to talk about, I'll let you know what's happening. But meantime, it's still Senna, Prost, Nannini, Berger, as for some inexplicable reason we look at a totally deserted start and finish straight. Aha! We have Prost, who is in second place, 11 seconds behind Senna, who is lapping faster than the Frenchman, who is dropping down to Le Pont at about 150 miles an hour. And I think the World Championship gap between Senna and Prost, which after 10 laps was 10 points, after 10 races was 10 points, is going to increase to 13 points, because Senna is on 9 points for another win in Belgium, which would be his third in succession and his fourth in all in Belgium, that is. 85, 88, 89 and 90 if he wins here. Alain Prost would get 6 points for second position, and that is not enough. There are less and less Grand Prix left for Alain Prost, the reigning world champion, to retain his title.
Yes, and they're both in clear traffic now, and when the track is clear, there's very little to choose indeed between these two drivers in percent of lap time, but still Senna has pulled away a little bit on that lap, and Berger now has got Alboreto protecting Nannini, but he is right there. Alboreto, very gentlemanly there, pulled over to give the racing line to Berger. Into the corner, but Berger, again, he's got a bit more grip than Nannini, but it'll be interesting to see when he does get upright with him, just how the two, McLaren and the Benetton, compare in a straight line. It won't be easy to make an accurate comparison, because with fresher rubber on, I should think Berger ought to be a lot quicker, or noticeably quicker, exiting Eau Rouge, which will give him apparently more straight line speed as they run down the straight, because of starting with greater momentum.
This is Nannini we're with. If you could see his rear view mirror, there it is on the right, you would see Berger's red and white McLaren Honda pretty big in it, as dropping down to the Puon, now down to Bargne again goes the Benetton Ford. So it's the V8 Ford engined Benetton leading the V10 Honda powered McLaren. And Nannini really is driving a super race because his tyres must be getting pretty shot now. He started on this set, Berger's gone in for a new set, Prost's gone in for a new set, Senna's gone in for a new set, and yet Nannini is staying ahead at the moment of Gerhard Berger. The gap in fact has increased. It was 1 second and it's now 1.6 seconds. We are on lap 35, 44 lap race. Berger has dropped back most definitely. And Ayrton Senna has yet again broken the lap record. 1 minute 55.143, and he's still, although Prost has done his fastest lap, 1 minute 55.69, Senna has pulled up another half-second lead on him. It's now 12.051 seconds to the nearest thousandth of a second at the end of the 35th lap. And Berger closes right up at La Source. On the Benetton of third place, Nannini.
Yes, and now Berger looks very well placed, particularly if he's got a little bit more grip through Eau Rouge, up over the brow into the left-hand part. No, is he picking up the toe? There's no car in front of Nannini, or not close enough for Nannini to get an advantage from that, but not this time. Berger still needs to start the straight a little bit closer than that to really get into the draft. And these two have put a lot of space between themselves and Nelson Piquet now. Some 45 seconds they pulled away from Piquet.
And I think Berger, with another 8 laps or so to go, will get there in the end, but not if Nannini can resist him, which he's doing at the present moment. Senna 12 seconds ahead of Prost. This is the battle for third. Piquet is a long, long way behind in 5th position, but it looks as though the Brazilian 3-times world champion is going to finish in the points yet again. Good season for Nelson Piquet, and with the prospects of an entirely new John Barnard and Rory Byrne car for 1991, it could be even better then, if Rory Byrne is still with the team. And Senna now goes through, and this time the gap in terms of lap times as Nannini comes up to Cappy in the Arrows car. Now this is where Berger could take his chance. Is Cappy going to move over and let Nannini through? No, he's not. Berger's getting closer all the time. Now Nannini's got the problem of getting past the Arrows. The new Ford V8 engine in Nannini's Benetton, the old one in Cappy's Arrows, and up the rise now, and now the climb. This is where Nannini and Berger could get through, and Berger's right behind.
Yes. The only chance Nannini's got is he can get in the toe, you see there. But Berger was able to box him in, and Nannini's gone round the other side. Away! And that is... Oh, that's pretty irresponsible stuff. Where's Berger? Is he still on his left? No, and he's tucked in behind. Well, what happened there was Berger tried... And there we go again. Well, now they're just simply bumping wheels a little bit. Seems to be a little bit of contact there, but at the end of it all, Nannini emerges still in front of Gerhard Berger. Frustrating stuff. Berger was able to box Nannini in, and Nannini did a very clever bit of overtaking, using the back marker which Berger had committed himself not to try and pass, and was therefore made to brake a bit early by the back marker, and Nannini popped round the other side of him and got past him in fact, but Berger really carved him up as they went into the corner.
Yeah, I suspect Nannini is saying, I've had enough of this, because Senna had me off in Hungary and Berger had Mansell off in Hungary, and it's not going to jolly well happen again if Sandro Nannini can do anything about it. And he's a very tough cookie, is Sandro Nannini. He's holding his place ahead of Gerhard Berger, and Ayrton Senna. Now, there you see Nannini's car, and he's still got the arrows in front of him. And this is where Berger can challenge again as they're coming up to La Source, and then the drop down to Eau Rouge. And Nannini's going through on the inside, tucks in. Berger is following through, and he's pushed out the arrows onto the wide line that Nigel Mansell pioneered last year. Alex Caffey is passed by both Nannini and Gerhard Berger, battling for third position in the Belgian Grand Prix, with, as you see, 7 laps to go.
Yes, and ahead of them, Senna and Prost have settled down to a very high-speed stalemate that's happening, because they're still lapping within a tenth or two, and the gap is 12 seconds dead. The most it's been is 12.2 or something like that, and they're still lapping very, very close to the lap record. So there's certainly no let-up at the front, but there is a stalemate, and we're quite right to be watching this battle, because Berger can clearly lap a good bit more quickly if he had clear air to get ahead of Nannini, but Nannini is not going to give that pace away, and as Murray just said, he's had enough of being pushed around by McLarens. I'm quite sure he was pushed right out of the race by Senna in Hungary, and certainly pushed around there by Berger, and I should think he'll be digging in and saying enough's enough.
We'll see. Guterman for Leighton House is doing well, so is Capelli. They're in 6th and 7th places. There is one of the Tyrrell's. It looks like, no, I think it was a Brabham actually. Yes, it was. But we'll check on that. Anyway, now we're waiting as Alain Prost goes through, and he's closing on Senna. 55.8087, 10.7 seconds behind. We're with Nannini.
Yes, and that puts Prost now with the lap record. They've been trading it back and forth ever since their pit stops. But I still think that the lead is stalemated, really, as the big battle of the race we look at now. I don't think Berger's close enough this time to be able to get a run at Nannini. And in fact, Nannini, well, has just put in a very quick lap indeed. That's his fastest lap of the race. Now that confounds a few theories about tyre wear and performance dropping off, because for Nannini, with tyres that are very nearly a race distance old, has just done his fastest lap of the race. And so he certainly found something extra in terms of speed, which will make passing considerably more difficult for Gerhard Berger. And besides, of course, that was David Brabham in the Brabham who pulled up there. But what the question this begs, though, is why, if Nannini is now lapping in under 1 minute 56, why he appeared to be stuck at 1:58 only a few laps ago, and not go so quickly. If he can go this fast now, why wasn't he doing it 10 laps ago? I'd be interested to know the answer to that. I'm not suggesting that he should have been, but it does seem odd.
5 laps to go at this one, and Ayrton Senna has now completed his 39th lap. Still ahead, well ahead, of course, of Alain Prost. It was 10.5 seconds. It's still as near as makes no difference, 10.5, because it's 10.6 as Nannini. And I really do take my hat off to the Italian, the way he is resisting this challenge from Gerhard Berger very successfully indeed. And it looks as though Nannini is on his way to another 3rd place, to add to the one that he got in San Marino. He's only got 13 points in the World Championship so far because he's retired from 5 races, but he looks like finishing this one and on the podium.
I hope I'm wrong about this, but Nannini, you see, was lapping a lot slower than this until he had that incident with Berger. I hope that the adrenaline charge that he had from that didn't suddenly make him lap a 2.5 quicker, which is what he did do, because if he did, I, as his team manager, would say, well, what on earth were you doing lapping a 2.5 slower than that earlier? That would have to be the question. If an adrenaline charge is what it was that's made him suddenly wake up and drive faster. But it is a worry because it is odd. With turbos, of course, you couldn't tell. They could turn the boost up and down, and you never knew what power a driver is running. But that isn't the case with these. And for a guy suddenly to go, second and a half quicker than he was before, there's nothing he can do to the car to make that happen. So it has to have come from him.
Lap 40. No change at the front. By at the front, I mean Senna and Prost. It's still 10.5 seconds between the McLaren of Senna on his way to his 25th Grand Prix victory and Alain Prost second in the race and in the World Championship. And there was a puff of smoke from Nannini's car there as he went round the right-hander. I do hope that he isn't going to have an engine problem in the closing stages of the race. He's coming out of Blanchimont, no, into Blanchimont now, up to the bus stop again for the 40th time in this race, with the very determined Gerhard Berger, who certainly hasn't sadly lived up to the promise that we all thought he showed when he joined the McLaren team from Ferrari at the beginning of this year. Berger, and there's Senna going through and passing Nicola Larini's sole Ligier in the race, because Philippe Alliot failed to start, and I noticed that Larini has actually got the distinctive flashes on the rear wing that Philippe Alliot normally carries, and Senna just quietly by his standards maintaining his race lead, maintaining his lap speed, because he knows that he's only got to do that, and there is no way, short of mechanical problem, that Prost is going to catch him, let alone get past him, because Senna has a very comfortable cushion. He will know exactly what the score is from his car to pits radio.
Yes, and he'll be easing up now, just taking it easy, taking the line. He's got plenty of space and not many laps, but Nannini is just going quicker and quicker, with Berger still hounding him, and it is most extraordinary. I hope that the Benetton team will at least ask him why he suddenly found so much time so late in the race. He's doing almost new tyre times on very old tyres.
Lap 41, race order. Senna leads Prost by 10 seconds, still lapping faster than the Frenchman. This is the third place man, Nannini. Fourth, just behind him, Berger. Fifth is Nelson Piquet. Sixth is Gugelmin. You can see on the caption the gaps between them. Seventh is Capelli in the second Leighton House car. Eighth is Alesi. And Ayrton Senna has gone through now to complete his 41st lap. Laps 42, 43 and 44 still to go. Just 3 laps of this 4.3 mile Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Berger knows that. Nannini knows that. Nannini's tyres will be getting more and more worn. Prost has actually now lapped half a second faster than Senna to reduce the gap to under 10 seconds to 9.5. But of course it is too late. Nannini is 22 seconds by. You notice the way Nannini and Berger both have to skirt round David Brabham's retired Brabham, which is on the racing line. On the there you saw the back of Nannini's car wiggle there. His tyres are really shot. He lost it there momentarily. He lost his momentum, and that has given Gerhard Berger. Here's the replay. Watch the car. That's the Radial, and that's the most difficult corner on the circuit.
I think that's a puncture in the right rear. It looked a little bit as if the right rear was down, but maybe he just got a bit of a twitch on as he went over the brow where the car goes light there, because he hasn't slowed down a lot anyway, and if he'd got a puncture I would have thought he would have dropped back a lot more than that now. So it looks like he just made error on the top. Certainly it would be brought upon by worn tyres, and he's put in a tremendous fight, lapping very quickly indeed for such worn rubber at the end of the race like this. But Berger's pressure, and with the advantage of fresh rubber on the car from just before half distance, his relentless pressure has finally paid off. But a tremendous rearguard fight for the place. And who's that with the fire extinguisher? There's so much foam on the car. It looks like the Brabham. Maybe it's the Brabham still parked. Or is it Modena? And that looks like Modena sitting on the Armco there with the white helmet, just climbing over the barrier. That is indeed Stefano Modena. So that's unfortunate. Brabham's struggling team at the moment, and they certainly can do without 2 late retirements, which is how they finish. It's the most frustrating way to go through a Grand Prix, is to get the car nearly to the finish, all that work done, and then break down within sight of the flag. So Senna, there it is on the caption, 2 laps to go. And, well, a lap and a half to go, some 9.5 seconds still over Alain Prost. And a win that he's had to work very hard for, Ayrton Senna. In fact, this really became a race that was actually decided in the pits, because with the McLaren of Senna and the Ferrari of Prost coming in together, with McLaren having a slight start in that Senna was leading by a couple of seconds. But anything wrong with their stop and anything particularly right with Ferraris, if they had reversed the order going out of the pits, it may well have stayed that way till the end of the race. But full marks to the McLaren team, because they made an absolutely fabulous tyre change on Senna's car under pressure, because they had Prost practically running over their heels as they worked on the stop then, so they knew he was in, and they knew they had to get Senna away ahead of him. They did it without any mistake, without any panic. The Ferrari team, their pit stop was not one of their best. It was only a couple of seconds worse than McLaren's probably, but that was all it needed. And then Senna's big fight at the front when Nannini was on top of him as he came out of the pits. As I said then, questionable tactics by Senna, weaving at Nannini on the straight to keep him behind him, but so that he wouldn't have to re-pass him and lose all that potential time. And that was a big tactical thing, because it kept Prost behind him, and by the time Prost got past, there was an 8-second gap. The gap is now, oddly enough, 7.8 seconds, so almost exactly what it was after the pit stops had settled down. And a stalemate between these two, but Senna had the edge from the pit stop and goes to a well-deserved win. Tremendous fight by Prost, and a good second place for him, but good second places behind Senna are not going to win him the championship, and he'll find that a disappointing result. Berger bringing the second McLaren home in 3rd place. Another good drive by him, good and combative, good to watch. And Nannini, a very interesting drive, went very quickly when the adrenaline went. Wasn't going so quickly before, but fought well to defend his 3rd place, but maybe a bit too late. And it does beg a question as to why he wasn't going that quickly before he had the big bust-up with Berger.
And I would add to all that, a good race for the Leighton House cars as Ayrton Senna comes home in the closing stages of the last lap to win his 25th Grand Prix and his 3rd in succession in Belgium, because Maurizio Gugelmin is going to finish in 6th place in the points, and his teammate Capelli, who pulled over to let Senna through, is going to finish lapped in 7th place. So both the Leighton House cars come home at the end of the race, and that is, if not a first, it's pretty unusual for them in 1990. But Senna out of the bus stop, across the line to take the checkered flag, to win in Belgium for the 3rd time in succession, the 4th time in all. And you can see how comparatively easily he took it on that last lap, because Alain Prost finished 2nd, only 3.5 seconds behind Ayrton Senna's McLaren. But the gap doesn't matter. The fact is that Senna won, Prost 2nd. Here is the 2nd McLaren Honda coming home in 3rd position in the hands of Gerhard Berger, who will of course retain his 3rd position in the World Championship. And Alessandro Nannini, we're riding with him because of those worn tyres of his, had to give up in the end and let Gerhard Berger through, but he's going to be in the points. He's going to finish in 4th position. And now the World Championship is led by Ayrton Senna by an increased margin, 13 points ahead of Alain Prost. Berger still in 3rd position, Boutsen still in 4th place, Nelson Piquet still in 5th position, but up to 6th in the Drivers' World Championship comes Alessandro Nannini, displacing Riccardo Patrese. McLaren have, of course, increased their gap in the Constructors' Championship over Ferrari after what was not the most memorable of Belgian Grand Prix, but the Lotus's finish, Warwick 11th and Donnelly 12th.
Another quite uncompromising performance from Ayrton Senna, 4 times a winner in the last 5 years at Spa. Senna from Prost, Berger third, then Nannini, Piquet and Gugelmin in 6th place. And the championship table, well, the gap widens between Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. 13 points now, Senna's lead. And the Grand Prix is running out now for Alain Prost. The next round, the Italian Grand Prix at Monza in a fortnight's time. So a Belgian Grand Prix completed there for the 3rd time of asking. It's all rather...
His 2nd race in a row and a further dampener to Ferrari hopes of wresting McLaren's crown. Senna now had 5 wins to Prost 4, with the battle as hot as ever. On the podium, the absence of feeling between Senna and Prost was evident, but at least Gerhard was in the mood to party. Now Ferrari hopes pointed towards the force of crowd power at the next race, their home event, the Italian Grand Prix. And Prost, trying to get to Monza as quickly as possible, had to be restrained by President Balestre himself.
To have 3 starts today was really stressing. I just, at one stage, I wished just to jump out of the car and not start again, because I wouldn't bother to stop again.
Yeah, I think I lost quite a lot at the beginning behind Gerhard and then behind Nannini when I changed tires. The car was very good the first part of the race, with a little bit of understeer. Then when I changed the tires, I had oversteer. So the balance was better the first part, but more than anything, the traffic for me was very bad. Behind Nannini, I lost something like 5 or 6 seconds, and then in one lap I lost another 5 seconds behind Alboreto, and it was too difficult. You know, we were too close in terms of performance to catch Ayrton and to have the opportunity to overtake him.
So I decided to stop early. And I was a little bit unlucky because I went just out behind Piquet. I went out in front of him, but I couldn't go quick enough through Rouge, and he passed me. And then he just didn't let me pass. I mean, I had good tires, and I had to drive already so hard for the tires that I come soon back to the situation what I had before the tires stopped. And then I passed him, and I catch Nannini, and it was in the moment where I come to Nannini, my tires was just again finished.
Tires were on the limit, and as soon people starting to stop, I decided also to stop, because it was already a problem with the tires. So it works everything fine.
A 25th Grand Prix win in Belgium for Ayrton Senna to beat Alain Prost. In 3rd position, Gerhard Berger, and in 4th place, Alessandro Nannini, ahead of his teammate Nelson Piquet. In 6th position for Leighton House, Maurizio Gugelmin. So now Ayrton Senna leads Alain Prost by 13 points in the World Championship. Berger and Boutsen still 3rd and 4th, ahead of Piquet and Nannini. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren have increased their lead over Ferrari to 33 points. Williams 3rd, Benetton 4th and Tyrrell 5th. In 2 weeks' time, it's the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. That should suit McLaren too. Are they going to beat Ferrari on their home ground? Watch Grand Prix.